Hello everybody, welcome back to our energy update. I hope you guys are all well. This is the energy update for week 21, May 18th till May 24th, and today is May 17th. Okay. All right, I don't know if you've noticed this, but there was a shift that happened here a couple of days ago, and it made some of you maybe feel a little bit sort of out of it, a little bit you know, not quite there, wanting to cave in, maybe wanting to isolate a bit. Since this is live here, you know, I would love to hear from you guys, not only sort of what you experience, but also where you're from. And you can, of course, ask questions. Just as a reminder here, these collective energies, they are produced, or the data that I come up with is produced through energy sessions, energy clearings, transmissions, and energy coaching sessions here at transCODES over this last period, which is the last week. And so I usually get a lot of feedback here, you know, just talking to a lot of people, energetically sensitives and empaths, and having sort of a good overview here what sort of the main sentiment is. I want to start the energy update here with a little bit of a review. I like doing that simply because, you know, energies don't really work, you know, week by week. We have transitions. Okay, so last week we talked about making conscious decisions, and we're still in that a little bit. So here in this week now, it's a bit more intense. There's a confrontation, there's conflict energies that are coming in, and these conflict energies, I want to point this out, they have a lot to do with our ability to make conscious decisions. All right, so if you've already gone, you know, maybe through a little bit of an inventory last week and identified things that you are committing to, or that you are engaging in, you know, are actually not conducive for you or for the other persons involved, and you've come to this place where, you know, you at least had this clarity, then you are one of those, you know, like empaths, you know, that feel these collective energies a little bit ahead of time. So this coming week here, you know, called conscious correction, and you can see there's a theme here in these last couple of weeks. It's all about becoming more aware, you know, all about this conscious making process and consciousness work. All right. The consciousness work that comes in through our inner prompting, and that we could call, or many call this global awakening, this global transformation. So there was something, you know, in the background that is pulling us into this higher consciousness, if you will. And we'll talk about this a little bit today here, because there is you know, this greater understanding that is really important now as we are moving into this like real active transformation that is going on here with our planet. All right, so let's look at these energies and what the theme is, and what they mean for, you know, us individually and us as collective, and then we're going to go into the energy tips. The theme, as I said, you know, is confrontation, but confrontation for the purpose of correction. In other words, you know, this can mean that there's more truth that's being uncovered, that there is more revelations, you know, in regards to certain topics, like say maybe politics, or you know, some of the recent events here with North Korea maybe, and so forth, you know, that something gets uncovered, perhaps even something like a true intention, or a different agenda that was displayed. For us personally, this can mean that we discover, you know, like either things with ourselves or with our partner or work or whatever, that they had a different agenda, that they, you know, didn't really say the truth, or, you know, like we've mentioned here in the beginning with Cheryl, not necessarily intentionally, but that there was you know, sort of an illusion of some kind, you know, or like something that they believed in that is no longer valid for them, that does no longer feel true to them. And so this correction is generally a good thing. However, it will lead to, you know, the rise of quite a bit of fear and anger too. And on a global scale, it's probably, you know, something that we need to be cautious about next week, okay? So be aware that people have a very short fuse, and that there's, you know, this potentiality that they will vent, okay? That they will, you know, just sort of burst out and maybe even do things that they don't really mean, okay? So the same, of course, for yourself. But on a global political scale, this can mean that we are seeing attacks, maybe, you know, like terrorism. You know, the whole month of May and June really has the signature of potential attacks, you know, or attempts of some kind, okay? So just, you know, have that caution and pace yourself. It's really important here for this next week to stay in neutrality. Some of the reason for that correction is this move into a new paradigm, and that's something that we can't really stop. So there is this pull, you know, from our future. And again, here, this energies are not just non-local; they are also non-temporal, meaning that you know, our understanding, our 3D understanding of energies, you know, which is of course based on our 5 senses, is not a very good measuring tool for energies. And so there's stuff that is happening in these larger, wider realms, you know, that are still part of us, and we are still part of it. But there's a momentum, so to speak, or a force that is pulling us into this global evolution, consciousness transformation. Okay, now I'm not talking about this is going to happen within the next 3 months or something. You know, this transformational process has started, you know, way back, like probably around the 80s. This is when you know, most people realized a very strong shift here in consciousness, and then you know, once more here around the 2012 time. So, you know, it goes in increments, and we are now like sort of, you know, making another leap, you know, into the next level of that transformation. So that's you know, sort of the idea behind that, you know, being an energy worker or an energy healer, understanding that you know, there is a larger force in the universe, which I often call SYNTROPY in my writings, simply because it is sort of the counterforce to entropy. You know, entropy being the chaos, you know, being sort of this force in our universe that spreads everything, you know, and that creates disorder in things, but it needs that disorder, you know, for creation. But then at the same time, we need that counter energy, and that's the SYNTROPY, where everything converges, you know, like in our solar system, everything converges around the sun. So where there's like a sort of a pull point, you know, a gravity towards the higher good, towards unity, towards, you know, bringing everything together. All right, and so these two forces, you know, are the ones that determine, you know, a lot of these ups and downs and so forth that happen here in our universe, and to us, as we are all transceivers of that. Okay, and so for us here at this time and place in 3D, all right, we're being pulled into you know, a higher vibratory state, and this may take another 100 years. Okay, but in the process of doing that, there will be different steps and stages, you know, where we have to learn to transcend specific aspects of that. So here for this month, it is very clear, you know, it's about this tuning into this, our awareness and the conscious making of all of that. How may this play out on Earth changes? you know, I talked a lot about earthquakes and volcanoes here in the last months, and the earthquake warning, you know, more so I described it last week, is a rip and open, you know, it's a break and open. It's just this part of that transformational energy that I'm seeing. And also, you know, on a more sociological level, a fanatism that people are now sort of moving towards. I've warned against cults and, you know, this like really extreme type of trying to identify with something that we can belong to, because there's a lack of that here. And most of you or those that I worked with here actually felt this. I wrote about this in the May forecast, and this is a really good article. You may want to read this again, because I read it, I wrote it 3 weeks ago, but now it's starting to take form, and you can start to feel this within yourself, how this inner need to belong to something, you know, and to also this pull into this larger unity of things, okay? How this is starting, you know, to play out for you. Yes, and I'm starting to see you guys. Hello, Canada. Yes, thank you for being here. Strong shift for you as well. Yeah. You know, you see the energy barometer here on your screen turning into the red zone a little more, simply because, you know, when these confrontational and corrective energies come in, you know, it can lead to a lot of release. It can lead to a lot of venting with people. And so if there is no consciousness, and this is why I call this conscious correction, if there is no consciousness, no awareness about it, then it can actually be quite explosive. If there is, and this is sort of the main theme here of our today's energy update, you know, then the way we contextualize what happens to us loses sort of its electricity. It loses its intensity. We can still observe it, and we can witness all of that we are experiencing, and some of the things are nicer or not so nice, depending, you know, what our ego likes. But for the most part, we can sit there and observe this and be an active participant. But the majority of people are not doing active consciousness work. And that means that for the majority of people, when corrections come in, they will feel like higher power is overpowering them. They will feel like something is suddenly, you know, unexpectedly coming over them, and they will react to it. I hope this makes sense. Yes, and hello, Australia. Good to see you too. This is interesting, Cheryl, what you share here, that you had a day where you were feeling as though you were in someone else's life. It's sort of this surreal kind of feeling. That's actually something that empaths experience quite a bit. Some of that can have to do with just our natural tendency to absorb other people's energies. Some of it can also have to do with us getting closer to our true self and realizing some of the false self stuff that we do. And many empaths, you know, they're very quick on blaming it onto outer energies, or, you know, other people's energies, and absorbing them. But go into this checking out whether, you know, which part is true. It's all about clarity this week, you know, like really understanding which parts of us are true, and you know, like sort of based on our higher potential, you know, pulling us into the future really to become the best of ourselves, and which parts are almost like we don't even know why we're doing this. We can't even connect with our reasoning from before, and that can feel that way. That can feel surreal. You can go look at some of the choices that you've made in the past and look at them and say, I've no clue, you know, what was riding me at the time of making these choices, but this does not feel true to me right now. And so correction then is exactly what is needed, namely to say, okay, I see that there's an incongruence here, and I don't even have to judge this. I don't have to, like, you know, beat myself up over choices in the past. All I really need to do is to see that this choice was based on where my consciousness level was at the time. All right. And making conscious decisions and also conscious corrections, it means nothing else but really tuning into the moment of making choices. All right. And sometimes we don't have a solution or a fix yet. And that's okay too, because the more we can let go of the outcome, the more likely we are in our truth. If our ego is involved in our decision-making process, which of course, we've talked about ego a lot, and this here at transCODES, we have a whole entire community built around how to transcend the ego. But if your ego is involved in your decision-making process, chances are that the effect of these choices are not going to be conducive in the future for you, because it doesn't resonate with this higher potential, with the, your inner synergy that wants to go into convergence, that wants to go into, that place in you that is sort of linked into divine Wi-Fi, as we've called it a few weeks back. Yes, and it's cool to see all you guys here texting. It's wonderful. More from Australia, more from the United States. It's so good to have you guys here. I'm reading some of the chat. We're still in the review of last week. I'm feeling connected to someone that is actually no longer in my life. And I feel this person's energy from afar. Aline, this is something that is very common here for empaths, all right? And most of the people that watch these energy updates or that work with us at transCODES, they're quite familiar with this, because we are actually the ones that work those remote energies, that work in this field of non-locality. Okay, we know, and not just from an inner knowing place, but also from a really understanding type of place, that in order to feel somebody's energies, you don't really need to be face to face with them or touch them. We know that our energies extend much farther than just our physical body, and so it's quite a common phenomenon. The question only is, and this is the part here that has to do with the energies that are coming in now for next week, is how does it affect you? What does it do to you? Does it pull you into something? Does it make you doubt yourself? You've mentioned that this person is no longer in your life. So is there anything about the circumstances why this person is not in your life anymore that affects you emotionally? And as an energetically sensitive, we pay attention to these things and allow all that to be, and to sit in it, and to ask ourselves, okay, what is my feeling about this person now? Why is this person coming in? Now, this can go all the way to feeling completely bombarded or harassed, really, on an energetic level. And I hope you guys are no strangers to this, what I'm about to say, because this may sound a little weird, but here at transCODES, we actually deal with issues of energetic abuse and energetic rape and stuff like that, because these things, when you're an energy worker, are very, very real. They may not be happening in the 3D physical realm, but they do happen on the energetic or in the energetic or etheric realm, and are therefore no less real. And things such as intentions and if there are persons involved actually who know how to work energies, that's quite a serious subject. Yes, and I hope this helps you a little bit, just to feel more comfortable with this general idea. So yes, this is very common, okay? Unless it has a negative effect on you, you can, just allow it. But if you feel like it's somehow restricting you or influencing you or making you doubt yourself or making you feel bad, then it's time to do something about it. And we teach people what to do about this, how to basically kick people out of your own energy field, how to set more clear boundaries also in the etheric. Okay, this will become more and more a topic here in the future as there's more and more people awakening to their energetic sensitivity and also accepting energetic reality as real. Hope this helped. Yes, Janelle, cool you came. It's in the middle of the night for you, 4 a.m. In New Zealand, I suppose, or Australia, yes. Okay, so when energies get a little more intense for us empaths, that usually means that we have increased dreaming activity, increased sort of nerve stuff, okay? And we're going to talk about this here just a sec. All this really means is, okay, there is a shift. I'm noticing the shift. I allow the shift, okay? So I accept that there is a shift, and it doesn't really have to have a meaning. It doesn't really have to, be, something. It just means that you are picking up on the shift. And the shift here in this week is can be felt throughout the entire world. All right. And that is into confrontation, into like really putting things, basically looking at each other and for us internally, it can feel like, okay, we're at this point where we have to make a choice. Okay. But when you look at two different parties, then two different parties coming together, clashing, okay, rocking. All right. And so, we as energetically sensitives, we can feel that when that comes on, but that doesn't mean that we are going to go through a major crisis or anything like that. It doesn't mean anything. It just means that you picked up on a shift, and then you just sort of slow down, center yourself. For most people, it's very important to ground ourselves, especially here in this next week. Janelle, if you cannot sleep, the best thing to do is disengage. It's probably your mind that's keeping you awake. I've talked about conscious breathing before. If you can do this, just take a few really deep breaths, and focus on your energy. That will give your mind enough to do to just disengage. Okay. And then if you have something like an invocation or an affirmation or a prayer that you can say, this usually works really well, where you just surrender, like something like the serenity prayer, where you just ask to be able to let go, okay, or the grace invocation, where you call in your higher power and literally hand over, surrender everything to your higher power in moments where you can't fall asleep or where you can't disengage from your mind. That can really help, because it keeps the mind just busy enough, focusing on saying these words, but not so rogue that it goes off on its own. I hope this helps. Yes, hello New York, and more people who can't sleep. I hope this tip helps you. Okay, so like really sort of work with your mind. Don't try to shut it up. The more you resist your mind, the harder it will go on you. Put it to work, but in a way that it's conducive for you. So recite something, or even something like singing a song, where the lyrics. Those things can help you to fall asleep, to finally let go. So how is this all? I hope I didn't forget anything. How is this reality check now? How is this all working out here for us next week? And what are my energy tips for this? Okay, so remember, I do divide the energy tips into different groups: physical, emotional, mental, social, relationship related, spiritual, and energetic. Why am I doing this? It's very simple. Of course, physically, emotionally, mentally, everybody understands that, we can perceive things on a physical level differently than we can on an emotional level, and so forth. And most of us here are able to differentiate. However, with increasing consciousness level and awareness, your perception, or the broad the bandwidth of your perception increases, and you will notice that you will be able to perceive things on different levels as well. Spiritually, what is the spiritual meaning of that for me? You know, what is the energetic meaning here for me? And these things are all for different parts of audience here, namely depending on what you're working on. Okay, so when I say, okay, this week we're going to have to consciously work on our connection with our body, then that affects everybody. But when I say, okay, physically, this can affect you so and so, this doesn't mean that it has to affect you so and so, but these energies that I just, talked about, the correction and confrontation and the reality check of that and the clarity that we need to go into and the neutrality that we want to maintain, you know, that can have an effect on you physically if there is something stuck. If you have, imbalances in your physical, then it will most likely play out this way. So my energy tips are, always based on counteracting this, and working with this, if this makes sense. So physically, one of the big issues here next week, just like we have already had this in the previous weeks, is your nervous system. Okay, one moment here, I forgot to mention the chakras, the energy centers involved. So the primary energy centers involved next week will be the 2nd and the 6th, the 5th, and the 1st. And there's a reason why I'm saying this in this order. And then later, probably around after the weekend, so Monday, Tuesday, we'll feel like a bit more influx on the 7th. Okay, so 2nd chakra is our emotions. That's our, the sacral chakra, our passion, also our heatedness, but for most of us energetically sensitives is the place where our emotional energies get stored. And where we have the biggest issues, physically, either with digestion or with organs or with lower back and so forth. So these things can flare up here next week. But also you're 6. So there's a combination between 2nd and 6th, and that is, the ego field that we all have to work with. The 6th chakra is your clarity, is your vision, is your ability, is your third eye, is your ability to see beyond yourself. Okay, and to open yourself up for your spiritual and energetic reality. Okay, but then we have the 1st chakra playing in, and that is the grounding. So what that tells me is, don't lift off too much. Don't go into fantasy. Don't go into, just wanting to check out, with that. Keep yourself grounded. Okay. And then is the 5th chakra, and that asks us to express, that asks us to communicate, that asks us to, really go into this actualization of our inner truth. Okay, and we're going to illuminate here how this plays out. So physically, I've already mentioned, your nervous system is still very much intensified or activated here. And in the last week, we've had a lot of people with sciatic problems. That's the nerve, that runs down. It runs down your butt and into your legs. Okay, I'm not a physiotherapist, but you know what I mean. That part of you, whenever you feel that part activated and you get pain in your sciatic area, it's usually an indication that you've overburdened yourself, that you've took on too much, that you are living in a condition that I would call dominated by self-imposed restrictions, if that makes sense. Other aspects of your physical here in this next week is gallbladder. This has a lot to do with the repressed anger. So I mentioned this before, people will be venting, and you may have to vent as well. Fear and anger issues here showing their effects in gallbladder, and also in the general state of toxins staying in your body. So like last week, I'm still recommending you guys to work with your lymphatic system, Google diets, that are, anything that supports your lymph system actually also supports your overall health and lowers your acidity level and so forth. So that's why I like, bringing this up. However, it's in this case mostly about the release of these toxins, the release of the physical residue of these negative energies that or emotional energies that you have not been able to fully express. Also, thanks to one of you, this came to my attention here because lately in the energy sessions we have a lot of sort of spinal work. Spinal adjustments happening. It's probably a good idea if you do some posture work here for this next week, and really try to have a more conscious, posture. Because your posture, this probably from sort of the yoga or Hindu meditation traditions, to like really sit up and have your spine straight. I don't want to go too deep into this, but if you're looking for something that can help you with grounding, releasing toxins, and posture work, you may want to try out Tai Chi. There's all different kinds of variations of Tai Chi, soft ones and more, yes, or yoga, but Tai Chi specifically, helps us to really tune into the what is the most beneficial posture for our body personally, to increase or to promote positive energy flow. Okay, emotionally, due to this correction and confrontation and so forth, fear, anger, I've already said that, it may trigger betrayal in you, it may trigger regrets in you. There's a lot of guilt in the air, about past choices. That's why I talked so much about this in the beginning, like don't look at your past choices from today's perspective. Yes, you can look at it from today's perspective, but you have to like see that, you made those choices at a different time, and you had a different conscious level at the time, and so not like as in not being accountable for it, but the process of making conscious choices and becoming more aware is what allows you to own your choices in the past and to say, okay, I made that choice back then based on my perception back then, but my perception has changed now, my energy has changed now, I'm much more clear about my values, my integrity, my priorities, my boundaries. And so, yes, I stick with what I said back then, but things have changed for me. Things have shifted for me. And to really also allow yourself to really feel that. And then, to actually also express that. Because when it comes to relationships, we'll talk about this here in a sec, that can pose a little bit of a problem. But the main thing here for this next week is you need to overcome your fear of big emotions, guys. Okay, because if you stay there where you've been in the past where you just sort of suck up things or absorb things too much, then you're also storing all these toxins in you, and on the long run this will have a negative effect on your health. Okay, so it's just this thin line between wanting to be empathetic, and being sympathetic. Okay, so when you become sympathetic, that's when you begin to resonate on the same level as the other person, and that's when you lose your neutrality, and this can be intrusive. This is what I meant earlier, Aline, about feeling energies from others. There's nothing wrong with feeling energies from others or allowing them, but if you feel like that it's somehow affecting your energy, then you need to be cautious. Okay, so allow yourself to release energies here. This is a big theme for release emotions, specifically. That's a big theme for next week. Mentally, well, we're still in the choice-making process, and some of what I already shared here about judging, how you judge your choices in the past and so forth, will affect you mentally. So there's a bit of a reality check with things, and yes, there's an uncovering of truth, but this doesn't mean that everything you did or everything you said in the past was a lie. It doesn't mean that. So beware of going into polarities, of going into black and white. Neutrality here is a big keyword for next week. And also, those of you who are very much about values and morals and ethics, watch that you don't go too extreme, with all the the values and the duties and the chores that you have, because that can then link back to, you know, overcommitting, overextending ourselves, you know, making promises or making commitments that you cannot really hold because they have a negative effect on you. You see how this conscious decision making, conscious, you know, correction, how this is quite complex actually, if you look at it from all these different perspectives. So the mental part of you will tend to judge things, and it will tend to make things black or white. And you got to make sure that you don't go for this, because some of that is based on an illusion. Just because you've always done it that way, or just because one does it that way, or just because, you know, this is, you know, like whatever, a rule doesn't mean that it's conducive for you. So you're going to have to learn how to pierce through that. And the way to do this is, you know, again here, being present with yourself and really conscious, you know, like, does this feel true to me? Oh, I'm not sure, because, you know, I'm in like constant doubt and regrets and guilt. And okay, then that means you're not sure yet. And that means you have to postpone your decision-making process to when you're more clear about it. And it's totally okay, and this leads now to the relationship issues, the social aspect of this. It's totally okay to say, you know what, I don't have a solution yet. I don't know a fix. I can't tell you right now. I need more space to feel this out. All right. And besides that, when it comes to correction in relationships, or, you know, in interaction with others, you know, it's really important to be very clear about where you are standing with this right now, even if it is not leading to, you know, like the solution or the fix, you know, and to say to yourself, okay, I need to express my concerns. My concerns are, you know, blah, 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 and I haven't found a solution for this yet, but this is what I'm working on right now. And if it's okay for you, you know, I'd like to, you know, feel this out a bit. I'm working on this, but to consciously also not just expressing your concerns, but also asking for more space. Yeah, and what you're saying here, it makes you feel more sorry for the other person than anything else. Aline, what that tells me is that you tend to absorb emotional energies from others. And, you know, again here, there's a fine line between empathy and sympathy. Okay. An empath, and this is something that allows us, you know, to feel others and to be very present for the person, doesn't necessarily mean that we have to be pulled into that emotion. That be sympathy. And sympathy is something that can affect your energy negatively, which is why many people who are not trained in energy work but try to be healing or of service to others feel drained at the end of the day. So it's not necessarily that the energies of that person that you say commiserating with, or that you feel sympathy for, are mean or anything, or malicious, but you know, their energy is at a lower vibratory state than yours, and that means that if you take that on, you know, it works like osmosis. You know, it kind of colors off to your energy, and then you are being pulled down. Okay, and you, as an empath, you need to train that, how you can be present with somebody and feel empathy and compassion, but without being pulled into this. This is the reason, guys, why we all have so many relationship issues, because we make these promises, we make commitments, we enable things, you know, for the sake of, you know, being there or being good. But at the end of the day, the balance for us is negative. And this is really the correction here that I'm talking about. So thank you for sharing. This is really cool because it brings in examples. Okay, so this next week on your relationship or interaction level, you need to make sure that you have a clarity about you, and also in the way that you express things, because otherwise you're going to get pulled into making these promises or enabling things that are not good for you. Okay. Yes, and this is often why relationships break up. Because, you know, we lose ourselves in the process. This is so common for empaths, guys. And here in the Sacred Self-Healing community, we had a big discussion, or not big, but we had a discussion about the empath and narcissist relationship. And I did a big video on this in the past, so I'll pull that up for you guys, you know, in which I really just made or showed that, you know, yes, there's of course an overall intention, but at the end of the day, you know, an empath who is, you know, not trained is not much different from, you know, like a narcissist who is not aware of what he's or she's doing. Okay, both are energetically sensitives, both are empaths, you know, and they're just on the extreme other end of things. So the narcissist will only do things that are good for him and that overpower others and that control others. And the empath, you know, will sit on the other end and just take it and take it and take it. And so there's a dynamic here that develops between these two poles, if you will, that becomes dysfunctional altogether. You know, at the end of the day, you know, if you really feel this out, you know, the narcissist is just, you know, as in an illusion about what is going on, than the empath is. And oftentimes these type of relationships, not in that extreme, maybe, that it leads to energetic abuse or anything, but you know, these type of relationships often fall apart because there is no way for either one of them to work through this. Yeah. Spiritually, guys, you know, this has a lot to do, you know, I talked about neutrality. It has a lot to do in like finding that center in you and trusting that, you know, as long as your alignment is right, as long as you know, your conscious awareness is with what is best for you, but also best for, you know, everybody else involved. So like, you know, this divine Wi-Fi, remember, you know, where you also allow the greater good, you know, you don't really need to worry about it. But for the most part, you know, and this includes myself, I had to work on this for years and years, you know, to not needing to have a fix, to not really wanting to immediately control or you know, fix something. So that's not what correction means. Correction means like a course correction. So if I see that, like in my relationship or at my job, things are getting a little out of hand, right? That I'm enabling too much, or that I'm starting to feel like I'm being taken advantage of. Okay, then I need to make a course correction, and I need to specifically work on my boundaries. That's, for me, you know, as an empath, is one of the biggest themes till this day. Okay, I know this about myself. I'm clear about this. I'm not an illusion about this, and I work on this. Okay, so this has a lot to do with trust in myself, that I can work this out even without having a specific fix at this very moment. So this is also where surrender comes in, that I mentioned earlier, where you just allow all this, you know, to be handled by your inner higher power. And as you do this, you're actually also aligning yourselves to your inner higher power, which has a much higher vibratory rate than, like, say, your conflicts and, you know, you need to be somebody, or, you know, to be seen in a certain way. So it can help you to overcome, you know, these very things, often linked to our childhood or karmic, that come in where we're dominated by how we think the others see us, or how they like or dislike us. So spiritually, this is all about moving closer into your true self by going into this more neutral stance about truth and saying, okay, I accept truth the way it is, and that's empowering for me. But in order to stay on this course, I need to make a few corrections here and there. And this means, you know, all these things that we've talked about last week and the week before, that are values, priorities, you know, and boundaries. Okay, and so the spiritual work here for this week can be, you know, you tuning into, you know, your higher values, your higher vibratory goals, and really do a conscious inventory, you know, reality check with where in your life you're actually moving towards this, and where you're not, and where you're still more concerned about what other people think of you, or feeling guilty, or judging yourself. You know, then you got to hand this over to your higher power and allow it, you know, to pull you into this, the SYNTROPY, you know, to pull you into basically the highest solution or the highest potential for yourself. And this requires trust. Energetically, for those of you who are, active energy workers, this is the time here where you really want to become aware of your patterns, work with your core blocks, work with your core attachments, because, as you have probably already found out, they weave through everything in your life. They weave through all these different density layers of your energetic being. And so it's much smarter, to utilize energy work and to work on the core underneath all that than to trying to fix the symptoms all the time. It's that's how we were conditioned. But energy work teaches us that, our stuff, our ego stuff comes in clusters. And when we can work, when we're trained, and we teach people here, this about transcodes, on accepting the things, the unseen things, the things that we sort of basically carry around with us here in our energy signature that are not so aware to us, but when we allow them and we just accept them and use clearing, connecting, and integration modalities to get them, to invite them back into our inner wholeness, then we can resolve massive, massive clusters of things in our lives. One more thing here before I come to an end. Water keeps coming in here for everybody. Connect with water, especially hydrate yourself well. I wanted to show you guys real quick how I do this. I use these are actually recycled milk bottles, coconut milk bottles, and I use them as my water bottles. Carries a liter of water. Have at least 3 of those or 4 of those if you want to be really good, next to you, or, as a reminder, this is the amount of water that I want to drink. Okay. If you'd like would like to know more about, hydration levels and water and so forth, check the transCODES blog. There was a lot of articles that I wrote about diet and hydration. And for those of you interested, I published a few articles this week here about manifestation. One is called The Deeper Truths of the underneath the law of attraction, and 12 suggestions. Really, really cool work that can help you to gain more clarity about, where am I in my manifestation process, and also, deeper code work and why it makes sense. So there's an article that I released yesterday, Empaths, knowledge base, like what these deeper blocks that we have, how to address them. All right, guys, gotta get ready for the crypto spiritual update here in 10 minutes. So if you're interested how I contextualize those collective energies into the cryptosphere, then come back in 10 minutes. And see how, the affected chakras and all that, how that may actually play out in this new sort of industrial revolution, or new sort of manifestation of our global transformation, how it plays out in the cryptocurrency world. Thank you, guys. Don't forget to smash the like button. And if you have not signed up for my blog yet, or subscribe to the YouTube channel, then do this now. Also, there is a Facebook group called Sacred Self-Healing Community, where we discuss these things on an ongoing basis, some actually cool information. And we have a free forum, guys, a free energy forum, where there's so much material, and you have keywords that you can look for, search for topics and so forth. Take advantage of all these free resources here at transCODES. Okay. Have a wonderful weekend. So good to see you. And thank you for all these comments and questions. Wonderful. Bye-bye.